In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, January 27th. Health authorities here are looking to reduce the number of hospital beds currently allocated to COVID-19 care as the country's daily pandemic tallies ease. The United Nations acknowledges South Korea's advances on its human rights front, but urges for more active effort against the death penalty and discrimination. Meanwhile, early estimates show the U.S. economy maintaining its growth momentum in the fourth quarter of 2022 on the back of strong consumer spending. The number of hospital beds designated for COVID-19 treatment will be reduced as Korea's most recent pandemic wave appears to be subsiding. According to Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong on this Friday, the beds will be reduced by some 2,000 to 3,900 beds, which he claimed were adequate to respond to a potential scenario of 140,000 daily infections. Now, in recent days, the nation's COVID-19 reproduction index has retreated to 0.77. An index below 1 reportedly indicates that an outbreak is subsiding. UN human rights authorities have called on South Korea to take on a more active agenda here at home with regard to the death penalty and discrimination, while making note of its progress on other fronts. Our Lee Seung-jae has details.
South Korea's human rights record was put under the microscope on Thursday as part of the United Nations Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review. Reviewing South Korea for the first time in 4.5 years, they welcomed institutional achievements made so far, but requested that the Korean government make more effort to resolve issues that have not progressed for a long time, such as the abolition of the death penalty. During the review, South Korea's Vice Minister of Justice Lee No-gong laid out the improved human rights policies implemented since the previous review session in 2017 and listened to the opinions of member states at the UPR, which lasted a total of 3 hours and 30 minutes. Most member states agreed that South Korea had introduced most of the recommendations made in 2017. While countries like Israel, Peru, Singapore, Switzerland, and Turkey agreed that the overall human rights situation in Korea had improved, countries like Australia, Norway, Belgium, and Spain urged the Korean government to make greater efforts to completely abolish the death penalty. Representatives of European countries including Germany, Belgium, Finland, and Norway urged the enactment of a comprehensive anti-discrimination law. The Anti-Discrimination Act, which prohibits all discrimination based on gender, disability, and sexual orientation, has been steadily enacted since 2007, but amendments to the bill have not passed every time. The UPR is a system in which 193 member states of the United Nations take turns reviewing each other's human rights situation and whether to implement recommendations from fellow member states. The latest review for South Korea was the fourth of its kind. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
North Korea remains committed to its nuclear weapons ambitions. According to Voice of America, the commitment was shared by North Korean ambassador to the UN, Han Dae-sung, at a UN conference on Thursday. Han reportedly vowed that North Korea's nuclear weapons development will continue, given the presence of nuclear weapons that threaten its existence and the presence of a rampant anti-North Korea campaign by the U.S. and its allies, whose military collaboration has been strengthened against his country. He also condemned Seoul's labeling of Pyongyang as an enemy, accusing South Korea of preparing for war. Meanwhile, a senior U.S. expert on North Korea claims Pyongyang has refrained from conducting a nuclear test thus far because its leader, Kim Jong-un, sees no need to do so as of yet. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pei Eun-ji has more on his remarks.
A senior U.S. intelligence advisor says the North will continue to build on its nuclear leverage this year, with more provocations and the testing of new weapons. Sidney Seiler, the National Intelligence Officer for North Korea at the U.S. National Intelligence Council, was speaking Thursday local time at a webinar hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies. But he noted the regime understands the overwhelming strength of the alliance between South Korea and the U.S., and that it's fully aware of Washington's commitment to the defense of Seoul. Seiler also pointed out that the reason North Korea has not conducted its 7th nuclear test yet, even after completing preparations, is because leader Kim Jong-un doesn't see a need to do so. He said Kim will make the decision after calculating the development need, the demonstration need, the diplomatic need, and the domestic need. And that if the North's goal was to portray a constantly improving and exponentially growing nuclear threat, the nuclear test itself is not so critical. His remarks come as officials from South Korea and the U.S. have been saying since last spring that the North has completed preparations for its first nuclear test since 2017. It also comes 2 days after the CSI has issued a report on what it called dramatic and ongoing construction at the Seoul Satellite Launching Station, which is the North's main rocket launch site. 배은지, Arirang News.
And against that backdrop, top defense officials from South Korea and the U.S. are scheduled for talks here in Seoul next week. According to the Defense Ministry here, on this Friday, Minister Lee Jung-seop will play host to his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin next Tuesday. On the agenda are North Korea's continued military provocations and ways to implement Washington's extended deterrence policy. The latter topic comes in light of discussion about tangibly bolstering the credibility of America's support for its allies, namely Seoul and Tokyo. Now, ahead of the planned visit by Washington's top defense official here, our defense correspondent Oh Soo-young takes a look at the bilateral security partnership amid the prevailing geopolitical conditions. Do take a look.
The 70-year alliance between South Korea and the United States is deepening against growing threats from North Korea and also broadening beyond the traditional security issues. The biggest agenda for the allies this year is undoubtedly North Korea's rampant missile launches and the potential nuclear weapons test expected in the near future. Seoul and Washington have been discussing how to strengthen their extended deterrence against Pyongyang based on a range of contingencies, including a North Korean nuclear attack.
In particular, the United States should work to share information more closely with South Korea about how U.S. nuclear weapons would be employed in the event of North Korean aggressions. The United States should also listen to and incorporate South Korean concerns and feedback into its planning. While the ROK-US alliance lacks NATO's nuclear planning groups, it should work towards the same sort of consultation and planning that exists in the body.
While North Korea's threat remains the focal point of the bilateral alliance, it no longer fully defines the relationship.
We've seen this shift from an asymmetric alliance where the U.S. was directing the trajectory of the alliance to one that is more of an equal partnership, which looks at issues that go beyond the peninsula, which look at development cooperation, economic security, talking about promoting democracies.
Looking beyond the peninsula, South Korea is expected to work closely with the US in its initiatives to preserve a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific, where unfettered access to its seas enables 60% of the world's trade. Keeping the balance of power in the region will be a challenge, as the rivalry between Washington and Beijing continues to intensify and territorial disputes simmer in the South China Sea. But Seoul could play an important role in strengthening regional stability.
South Korea should consider participating in naval exercises with the United States beyond the waters of the East and West Seas to enhance their ability to operate jointly in support of their mutual interest. These exercises could involve a range of relevant operations, including ISR, resupply, slug protections, mines sweeping, amphibious operations, and anti-submarine warfare. Eventually, these steps could even pave the way toward the joint U.S.-ROK freedom of navigation operations.
With the U.S. Defense Secretary's visit to Seoul next week, the two sides are expected to discuss how to move their ironclad relations forward. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Surpassing earlier estimates by market pundits, the U.S. economy expanded at a 2.9% annualized rate in the fourth quarter of 2022, largely on the back of strong domestic consumption. Our Ian Jin reports.
2022 was a year of global economic hardship, and the United States was no exception. But resilient consumer spending and a strong labor market helped the U.S. economy finish 2022 in solid shape. After reporting negative growth rates in the first and second quarters, things started looking up in the third quarter, which marked a 3.2% increase. The U.S. Commerce Department reported Thursday that in the fourth quarter, the country's GDP rose at a 2.9% annualized pace. Though slightly lower than the pace in Q3, this figure is higher than projections from economists on how the year would end. Consumer spending, which accounts for about two-thirds of GDP, showed an increase of 2.1% for the fourth quarter. Positive, but slightly down from the 2.3% in the previous third quarter. Overall growth having decreased in the fourth quarter compared to the third quarter shows a loss of momentum in boosted consumer spending, mainly due to the effects of the Federal Reserve's monetary policy tightening cycle that's been changing more quickly than any time since the 1980s. Retail sales were strong starting the fourth quarter, but weakened sharply towards the end of the period, and manufacturing looks to have joined the housing market, which has gone into recession. While there are signs that the housing market is stabilizing, with the Fed slowing the pace of its rate hikes on mortgages, inventory accumulation, which played a big role in adding to GDP last year, is forecast to take a downward turn with demand slowing. Though the labor market has shown resilience, economists are now arguing that with business conditions deteriorating, companies may be slow to hire, that is, if they don't have to lay off workers. 2023 is expected to be another year of economic uncertainty, as questions still persist over whether the U.S. economy can maintain the positive trend in the year ahead. 이은진, Arirang News.
Back on the local front, business sentiment has fallen for the fifth straight month amid mounting concerns over the global economic slowdown and persistent inflation. According to the Bank of Korea on this Friday, the business survey index in January for all industries stood at 69, down 5 points from the previous month. The figure is the lowest since September 2020. A reading below 100 indicates a more pessimistic view of future business performance. The index among manufacturing firms stood at 66, falling 5 points compared to the month prior, mainly due to lower semiconductor demand. The figure for non-manufacturing businesses came to 71, also a 5-point drop due to a seasonal slowdown. In other news, the total number of eco-friendly vehicles registered here in the country last year surpassed 1.5 million. Now, this is a surge of 37% on year. According to Seoul's Transport Ministry, eco-friendly vehicles now account for 6.2% of the country's total car registration of 25.5 million. And among the eco-friendly vehicles, registrations of electric vehicles increased the most, with 68% on year. Eco-friendly vehicles include all-electric, hydrogen fuel cell electric, plug-in hybrid and gasoline hybrid models. Subscription-based business models have been resilient even in the face of challenges like the pandemic, as consumers opt for temporary use of goods and services through subscription rather than complete acquisition of ownership. Arirang explains.
The term subscription economy might be unfamiliar to some, but many people have used it at least once.
I subscribe to a salad delivery service. It's convenient when I'm busy and can't go to a store.
I'm planning to get chicken breast delivered regularly. Subscription services are cheaper, and I get it delivered to my door by the time it runs out.
The subscription economy is a growing business landscape that involves selling recurring subscriptions to consumers in exchange for access to a product or service over time. The global investment bank and financial services firm Credit Suisse says the subscription economy market size grew to $530 billion in 2020 from $420 billion in 2015. And it's expected that 75% of global manufacturing companies will provide this service this year. It's also expanding into a variety of industries in the current era of digital transformation. Amazon on Wednesday started a subscription service that allows premium members in the U.S. to purchase multiple medications for a flat fee of $5 a month, the e-commerce giant's latest foray into healthcare. Car companies, too, are getting in on the act, as Hyundai Motor introduced a program in South Korea that allows customers access to a car with a monthly subscription of a little over $800. A similar service is available in other countries such as Spain and the UK. It's similar to a lease, except users can opt out. And now the service has adopted AI technology to provide better choices for consumers. For example, some video subscription services provide recommended videos based on user history. It's expanding into the product delivery service too, where it recommends books or drinks using an algorithm based on a customer's gender and age. Despite the development in technology, however, one expert says businesses should brace for difficulties too.
As the economic slowdown continues, consumers tend to tighten their purse strings. The first thing they would likely do is cut their recurring payments for some subscriptions. But still, it's important for companies to adopt the subscription system in the long term, as the system is expanding into essential products and services.
She added letting consumers easily and conveniently cancel their subscriptions in this situation can be a good strategy that can lead to a positive corporate image, keeping consumers coming back in the future. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
The Korea Tourism Organization has won the Best Booth Award at the FITOR International Tourism Trade Fair over in Spain. The K2 announced the win on Friday, adding that it is the third time in a row that it has won the award. The Korean booth's design featured white porcelain made during the Joseon dynasty and curves from Korea's traditional attire, the hanbok. Considered one of the top 3 international tourism fairs, the FITOR Fair saw over 10,000 related agencies from around the world taking part. Meanwhile, the General Assembly of New Jersey in the U.S. has passed a resolution designated November 22nd as Kimchi Day. If the resolution is passed by Congress, New Jersey will become the 8th state in the U.S. to celebrate Kimchi Day. New Jersey was the first U.S. state to pass a resolution to celebrate hanbok, Korea's traditional attire, back in the year 2021. With kimchi pleasing palates in quite a number of places worldwide, pundits believe people in New Jersey will soon join the likes of California and New York in officially celebrating the signature Korean side dish. And here in capital Seoul, the city is looking to rebrand itself with a new slogan. Back in August last year, city officials launched their search for a new slogan to boost Seoul's competitive edge on the global stage. And following a survey of 2,000 members of the public, 4 candidates have made it to the final round. They are Seoul for You, Amazing Seoul, Seoul My Soul, and Make It Happen Seoul. Now, yet another public survey on the final 4 is open on the city's website until January 31st. Seoul will announce the winning slogan to replace the current I Seoul You in February.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Ukraine, another Russian barrage has hit residential buildings and infrastructure. The attacks on Thursday local time hit the cities of Kyiv, Venezia and Odessa, killing at least 11 and wounding 11 others. According to reports, these strikes are a routine pattern from Moscow, targeting key Ukrainian infrastructure, including power stations. Self-exploding drones marked the start of the attacks, with a missile barrage coming after. Local officials say that of the 55 missiles launched by Russia, Ukrainian defenses shot down 47. The latest act of Russian aggression comes just a day after the U.S. and Germany agreed to send tanks to aid Ukraine. The United States has officially designated the Russian mercenary Wagner Group as a, quote, transnational criminal organization. The designation was announced by the U.S. Treasury Department on Thursday, local time. It means that any U.S. asset owned by the Wagner Group is frozen. It also bans U.S. citizens from providing support to the group. Both the Treasury and the State Department also announced sanctions that cover a number of groups and individuals supporting the paramilitary group and Russia's defense industry. The private military contractor is heavily involved in the war in Ukraine and also has units stationed in Africa, which are accused of fueling terrorism. An artificial intelligence chatbot has managed to pass graduate-level law and business school exams. Called ChatGPT, the powerful new tool was able to pass law exams made up of multiple-choice and essay questions from 4 courses at the University of Minnesota. But despite its passing grade, the program only managed a C+, performing worse than human test takers, who averaged a B+. The chatbot did better on a business exam at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business. It scored a B to B- grade. The developments have sparked concerns that students could use the software to cheat. And finally, Egypt has unveiled a number of new discoveries, including 2 tombs that have been sealed for more than 4,000 years. The announcement on Thursday local time comes after a year-long excavation process at Gizr al-Mudir, a stone enclosure just outside of Cairo, near the Saqqara pyramids. The tombs are said to have belonged to a priest and a palace official. Other discoveries from the site include statues, amulets, and a well-preserved sarcophagus. Several other discoveries were announced in the past week, including burial sites dating back over 3,000 years near the southern city of Luxor, as well as the ruins of a Roman city. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Bone-chilling temperatures are about to set in. Tomorrow morning will be another unbearably freezing one, with morning temperatures to plunge below -10 degrees Celsius again here in the capital. Meanwhile, the west of Jeollado provinces and the surrounding regions are still seeing snowfall, as well as Jeju, with a heavy snow advisory reissued for Jeju, Ulleungdo, and Dokdo. And please do expect to see more snow through tomorrow morning, as heavy snow alerts are in place for those areas. The East Coast remains under dry weather alert, so those in the east of Gangwon-do province, which is also under a cold wave warning, need to be extra careful against fire. Now, afternoon highs are 1 to 5 degrees lower this afternoon, along with the biting winds. Seoul just seeing a high of -5 degrees Celsius today. Then another round of snow is in the forecast across Korea tomorrow. Then the cold snap eases on Sunday afternoon before another one sweeps in later next week, so please stay well. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
Right, and that ends our afternoon newscast. But do stay with us for our panel session coming up right after this break. Thank you for now.